Hi, I'm Andy Miocic. Welcome to our special coverage of events surrounding the Gaza peace plan. Let's go immediately live with footage from Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh, the resort hosting the peace summit. There we see the US President Donald Trump having a photo op with each of the more than 20 world leaders gathered in Egypt for the talks on Gaza's future. Just moments ago, we've seen him speak to the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. There have been many leaders there taking a photo with Trump, from the French President Emmanuel Macron, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, European Council President Antonio Costa. All of them are here to witness and partake in the official ceremony of signing the first phase of the Gaza peace agreement. Now, Trump came to Sharm el-Sheikh from Israel, where he addressed the Knesset. But before we get into that, let's talk about the latest. The leaders are gathering up for a family photo that will precede all the talks and the official signing ceremony. As Trump arrived to Egypt, he held a brief bilateral talk with Egypt's Abdel Fattah El-Sisi that was open to reporters. Trump said, answering fielding questions, that the second phase negotiations have already started, adding that all the phases of the peace plan are a little mixed in. He went on to claim that everybody said that the peace is not possible, but they can see it before their eyes. The Egyptian president called the ceasefire an unprecedented accomplishment, saying Trump is the only one that can bring about the end of the war in Gaza. Trump also spoke on the future of the Palestinian territory, saying that Gaza needs a lot of cleanup. Now, in that vein, on the sidelines of this summit, Sisi met with presidents of France, Turkey, as well as the Emir of Qatar and others to coordinate the implementation of the ceasefire, and, as it was stated from his office, to coordinate the reconstruction efforts for the territory. When it comes to those efforts, there will also be a 3-day conference opening in the UK in West Sussex dedicated to rebuilding Gaza. Some of the countries have already pledged some funds. UK said it will donate £30 million for the efforts of rebuilding the Strip, while Germany a few days ago said they will pledge 29 million euros. Now, as we've mentioned before, Trump came to Sharm el-Sheikh from Jerusalem, where he addressed the Israeli parliament in the run-up to his speech. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to the stage and thanked Donald Trump for his peace plan. The Speaker of Knesset said that Israel will call the Nobel Committee and nominate Donald Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize of 2026, as he had failed to grab this year's that was given out just a few days ago. Now we can see that the leaders have gone to all of their meetings with the photo op concluded. Now we are joined to talk on all of this, of course, the summit, the previous messages from Knesset, as well as the major news, the release and the return of 20 living Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza to Israel, as well as the release of some 1,900 Palestinian prisoners that have returned to the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Let's go live now to Rabat. I'm sorry, we are going live to the Netherlands, where our guest is waiting. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's start with the major news, of course, the release of the living hostages. In 2 rounds, 20 of the remaining living hostages have returned to Israel. Now, of course, there are problems with the return of the bodies of the deceased hostages. What are your thoughts on what transpired this morning?
Well, what I've proclaimed in the recent past and the different interviews with you is that we have a choice: or we go for apotheosis, or we go for an apocalypse. And here are the first steps for a new beginning. This is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. Maybe it's the end of the beginning. That the first step in the process for peace is the return of all the hostages, and not only the dead, but also but predominantly the living, and then later on the dead. And that is the first step, actually, in returning to the Abraham Accords. And if I watch, let's say, what's going on in Sharm el-Sheikh, is the first step. Is the second step in the program, is that we need a coalition of the willing to build a lasting peace, and that will be a very enduring process.
Well, this certainly seems like a large enough coalition, 20 plus countries. We have the European Council President there, UN Secretary General. Let's go back for 1 minute to the hostages situation. Now, the families are accusing Hamas of breaching the agreement, as Hamas had earlier said it will hand over 4 bodies today. The Israeli military confirmed that 2 coffins have been handed over. Now, there was a side note that because of the war, Hamas and the other militant groups do not know the exact location of some of the burial sites. Do you see that as a major obstacle to further negotiations and the ceasefire holding?
No, of course not. But, we were ready for this disappointment. It is very disappointing. But at the other hand, you have to realize that people have died 2 years ago, and they got lost in the rubble in Gaza. So it's going to be very difficult to recollect all these people, all the people that died over the last 2 years. It's terrible. It's horrible. But otherwise, the other point is that we have to move on with this peace process, because we can't continue fighting over there. So I think we have to step over our shadows, that and of course we have to continue to pressure Hamas, but at the end of the day we have to move on.
Well, on the other side, Israel has released more than 1,900 Palestinian prisoners.
Yes.
They've been returned to Gaza or the West Bank. How hard was that of a pill for Israel to swallow?
Well, it's always difficult to swallow, but even then, we have to realize we can't capture all these people and keep them in jail forever, because you can jail almost anybody over there. So to a certain point of time, we have to release these people and focus on the real matters that we have that are important. Actually, we have to finish this war. To understand what went wrong 2 years ago, have new elections, and work on the Abraham Accords, because we're not going to change these people's minds, because they have been indoctrinated for 30, 40, 50 years. So it's going to be part of a very lasting process in re-educating the people, building a peace, building a peace with a broad coalition of people that will help in changing the rules of the game.
Well, as the news came in surrounding the hostages and the prisoners, the U.S. President Donald Trump arrived to Jerusalem to address the Knesset. His speech came after the speeches of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the opposition leader Yair Lapid. Both of Israelis thanked Trump for his peace plan, while Trump said there is a new dawn rising over the Middle East and that the age of terror has come to an end.
Hopefully.
Do you agree with this assessment?
Yes, of course, hopefully it comes to an end, because jihadism will not bring anything. It won't last. And the good part of the show is that a broad coalition of Muslim countries, moderate Muslim countries, are willing to cooperate in a and that we have cohabitation with all these countries with Israel under the leadership of Donald Trump, and that we build lasting peace not only in the Middle East but also in Ukraine and Russia and other parts of the world, especially in North Africa. That we need moderation, and that we need a broader understanding of building a bright future for everybody. And that takes a giant leap. Maybe it's a giant leap, but it's a step-by-step approach that we have to achieve this. And so that's a very good thing.
Well, the U.S. president has often said of himself that he is a man of making deals. He also spoke about making a deal with Iran. Do you see that now more possible? Could that be accomplished now with the momentum of the newest ceasefire and the peace plan that is being negotiated right now?
Well, it proves again that Donald Trump is not a warmonger. This is a peace president, and he's a deal maker. And as a businessman, he knows that fighting wars is very expensive. So I think that we have the right man on the right place. Making a deal with Iran is quite a challenge, I can tell you, because it's not the Americans or Donald Trump that will bring the peace. It's the people in Iran themselves and the leadership that have to turn around and leave the war of jihadism. And I'm not sure that they're ready for that, or it will have to take another apocalypse again in order to convince them that there's only one route out. It's peace and a major understanding. So it has to come from the leadership in Tehran themselves if they want to choose for war or for peace. And we are ready for that.
Now, what are your expectations from this summit in Sharm el-Sheikh? We know that Israeli Prime Minister is not going to attend. His office said that it's due to the proximity of a Jewish holiday. But the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, is there. What can this summit bring?
Well, not for Mahmoud Abbas. He's there for, it's a sidekick, but it's very much important that we have a broad coalition, the coalition of the willing for the Abraham Accords. That everybody has to share his own responsibility in this. We can't expect the IDF to continue to conquer Gaza. So they've done their job. They did an outstanding job. And now it's about the Arabs. And that we have a coalition of Arab countries that will provide a peacekeeping role in Gaza. And that could be a next step for the West Bank as well. As I proclaimed and published before, a three-state solution where the Jordanians will play a role in the West Bank and the Egyptians will play a role in Gaza. And it needs a very broad support for all the Arab and Muslim countries to support this. And then later on, in the next whatever phase, the Israelis will go to a conference like this as well and participate so that everybody accepts the Israelis and the Israelis accept them. So it's a part of a program, it's part of a process designed by Donald Trump. So it's moving in the right direction.
How much of a victory lap is this for the U.S. president? We've seen him today in the Knesset getting standing ovations, few rounds of applause. Now individual world leaders going for a photo op with him in Egypt. How much of an accomplishment is this? And do you believe that with such strong U.S. involvement, this plan has some more chance to succeed than the previous negotiations that collapsed during the second ceasefire?
Well, it all depends on leadership. And that's what we need. We need leadership. Nobody else will be able to provide that leadership. The Chinese didn't do that. The Russians didn't do it. While the Europeans didn't come even close to leadership to make this change, this major change. So here we have a broad understanding between the Arab world, the Muslim world, under the leadership of Donald Trump, and well, there are some European leaders, but you know, the bystanders, like Mahmoud Abbas, he's a bystander in this program. They won't play any they won't play any role in let's say in the further process of achieving peace. But it's that's currently what's happening. It's the American leadership together with the Arabs.
Trump's peace plan does entail the Palestinian Authority contributing to the future of Gaza governance, of course, conditioned by reform. When it comes to that future and Trump's word of peace envisioned for the territory, we've seen also the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair joining the leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh. How much of a role could Blair play in the future governance of the Gaza Strip, and how can his arrival to such a position be viewed not only by Israel but also the Arab states, keeping in mind that he brought Britain into the Iraq War in 2003?
Well, you know, Blair's role is symbolic, of course, because the British started this whole feud 80 years ago by making the wrong decisions. Anyway, so the British are back in here as through Tony Blair in a project management role, right? But it has to come from the underlying partners, the Muslim states and the Arab states, with the Americans. So you need a neutral person like Tony Blair. He could play a role in here to save face for the British and for the Europeans. And that's the only role that I foresee.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight. That was Ken van Yerland, political analyst, joining us from the Netherlands. Now, as we are waiting for the talks in Sharm el-Sheikh to continue and wrap up, and the official signing ceremony gets underway, let's go live to Rabat and former Ambassador Gustavo de Aristegui. Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you. What can you tell us of your expectations of the summit taking place in Egypt right now?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Yeah, sorry. I was just asking, what are your basic expectations from the summit in Egypt taking place right now?
Well, I think I have a very positive opinion about what is going on right now, and unfortunately, I cannot say the same thing about the European leaders. I have seen with great shock that some leaders are trying to take advantage of the successes of Donald Trump and the United States administration, trying to say that they played a major role in what is happening right now in the Middle East. And unfortunately, that is not true. It's been the United Kingdom, for example, that say that they have been playing a major role behind wraps, that the Spanish administration has said the same thing. None of that is true. I think that what has happened is a very clear sign that peace through strength is a very effective way of diplomacy, much better than the one that has been applied during 80 years. Complete failure in every way, in every sense of the word. There has to be one analysis that is extremely important to understand why this is happening. A, there is no pro-Iranian Syrian regime anymore. B, Hezbollah has been decimated, and the most dangerous terrorist leader in the history, in the recent history of mankind, at least in the last 40 years,
Gustavo,
more than Bin Laden
I'm so
himself.
sorry for interrupting. Donald Trump is addressing the gathering. Let's have a listen.
Frankly, I thought this was probably going to be the toughest, and maybe in many ways it was, but we had a lot of good talent. Steve Witkoff, Jared, and Marco, and Pete, and General Kane is so great. John Ratcliffe was incredible. We had an amazing array of talent, and we were helped by, in particular, the countries represented at this table. I will say, Tamim, you were fantastic, and your country is unbelievable, and I don't think they give you a fair shake. They talk about you as though you're not a nice person, and you happen to be a nice person. You happen to live in a little tough neighborhood. You're surrounded by everybody. And without you, this wouldn't have happened. And I just want to thank you very much. That's Qatar. And he's an amazing leader. And another man who's been a friend of mine for a long time. I don't know what it is. I like the tough people better than I like the soft, easy ones. I don't know what the hell that is. It's a personality problem, I suspect. But this gentleman from a place called Turkey has one of the most powerful armies actually in the world. It's much more powerful than he even lets known. If you look at some of the recent conflicts, he was at the top of them and he was winning them, and he did win them. And he doesn't want any credits, he doesn't want anything, he just wants to be left alone. He's a tough cookie, but he's been my friend. And every time I've ever needed him, he's been there for me. So I just want to thank President Erdogan, Turkey. With him because he is difficult. They call me, they said, would you do me a favor, could you speak to Erdogan? And I do, and he never fails us, right, General? He never fails. He's amazing. So I just want to thank you for the friendship. It's good. Thank you very much. And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. There was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful. And very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate. And you are a great leader. We have very little crime. We have problems that other countries don't have. And of course, nothing's perfect, but the job you do is amazing, and I want to thank you. Another one, we've been my friend right from the beginning. During the campaign against crooked Hillary Clinton, have you heard of her? We were both downstairs waiting to go up to meet this gentleman who has a place called Egypt, the oldest civilization. They say 6,000 years. China is 5,000 years, but you're actually number one. 6,000 years, can you believe it? But the oldest, they say, civilization. But so I went up to meet him first, and we liked each other so much that she waited for about an hour and a half. And I think your meeting lasted about 2 minutes with her. So I always remembered that. But that was our first meeting. We had great chemistry together. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great, great president. And I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. We're really representative of a whole group of nations, and they're sitting behind us, and you know most of them. I can tell you this guy's got so much money. They all have so much money. There's more money and power sitting behind us. I love that they're behind us. They've never been sitting behind anybody before. This is a very unique position for them, but they are seriously, they're among the most powerful countries in the world, the richest countries in the world, and there's never been really an assemblage like what we have today. I don't think I've never seen it anyway. And I want to thank everybody for being with us. Man, I just solved the war for him. Azerbaijan. Oh, you got doing a good job? Where did you come take it? Where is there? You guys are still getting along, right? We fought for 32 years, and in about 1 hour we settled it, right? And they like each other now, too. That's great. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Italy, she's a very strong ruler. She's doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. So many, but we're actually going to be making a speech after this, so this is just a very important signing, but we're doing a signing, then we're doing a speech, and then I may stay behind with the leaders just to talk about that, some things. I want to thank the media for you've been so respectful on this deal. You know the importance of the deal, and I really, it was so pleasant to watch. I was on the plane for quite a while listening to the various newscasts, and they were all fair. They were talking about how incredible this is. This is an incredible day for the world. let alone the Middle East. So I just wanted to thank the media. They really treated it with respect. I wish you could be like that on other things, but that's perhaps too much to ask for. But on this, tremendous, everybody feels the same. Just tremendous respect, and we appreciate it very much. Can we get the documents, please? Okay.
We'll sign them right here.
Okay.
Well, the U.S. President Donald Trump is signing what he has called a very comprehensive document regarding the Gaza peace plan. In his address to the gathered, he struck up a very uplifting tone, praising his host, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi, praising Qatar and thanking them for their role, as well as praising Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the Turkish military power. He also looked around the room and spoke to Azerbaijan and Armenia's leaders, talking about settling their war, quote unquote, and asking, do they still get along? Now, as the leaders are signing these documents, in the background, we can see a lot of other leaders for which Trump has said they have the money and the power, and that is a rare sight that they are sitting behind. Now, of course, the major developments, the release of hostages, Palestinian prisoners, and the ceasefire that is still holding have been welcomed around the world, but maybe in the most sense in the Gaza Strip and Israel, as well as the West Bank. Now, after the signing ceremony, let's go straight back to Rabat. Gustavo, there was a very positive tone to Trump right now, praising everyone, thanking everyone, following his experiences from Jerusalem, where he got a standing ovation, rounds of applause. How much of a victory lap would you say that this is for the U.S. president?
I think that it is undoubtedly a diplomatic, personal, and political victory for Donald Trump. Even his worst enemies, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and other very senior Democrats have praised the involvement of the American administration, the involvement of the president himself and his team. A lot of people were questioning that he appoints to such a delicate position as special envoy for conflicts in general, but the Middle East in particular, a friend of his, a very close friend of his, as Mr. Steve Witkoff is, but the choice was the right one. I mean, he has done an extremely effective job in making everybody come together. But I would also like to underline that President Trump has made some very audacious remarks in the center of the Israeli power nucleus, which is the Knesset, when he praised Arab and Islamic countries for their role in this peace, when he praised the way that they had changed, when he praised by name a country that doesn't have a very good name in Israel, unfortunately, because it is, in my opinion, very unfair, which is the state of Qatar, or even mentioning by name Turkey, who has had very continuous frictions with the state of Israel in the last 5 or 6 years. So I think that it was a very courageous speech also, and he was saying what he needed to say everywhere. It's not just being nice where he is going, being nice to El-Sisi because he's in Egypt, being nice to the Emir of Qatar because he has been absolutely essential to the signing of this treaty, or for the contributions of Turkey, which have been also extremely important. And again, this deal would not have happened, as we were saying before, because of all of the risks of Israel have disappeared or have been severely affected and weakened. Hamas, Hezbollah, there is no pro-Iranian regime in Syria anymore, the Houthis, and of course the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq. Even Iraq has praised the peace plan, and we know that Iraq is under a very great deal of Iranian influence. And last but not least, even Iran was very cautious in evaluating the peace plan, and I would even say that the greatest audacity of them all was the fact that Trump was very honest and very open about opening his hand to a peace deal with the Iranians if they are ready to reach a deal. So again, I think that it's been a diplomatic Trump, someone that we haven't seen this way. So I do think that sometimes the diplomacy of gestures and the diplomacy of putting your fist down on the table sometimes works. This is a very clear example. I don't think that Hamas would have never accepted the deal if Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, and other major Muslim countries had not told them that if they did not accept, they would become a pariah in the world. They would not have any kind of open channels, back door or front door, none at all. And Qatar even told them that even though they had kept the financial channels open at the request of the United States, that they would close those channels and they would end up with nothing. So right now, the main issue that we have to analyze in the next 72, 48 hours is the disarmament the return of the mortal remains of the 28 hostages that have died in captivity. Second, the disarmament of Hamas. Third, the establishment of a provisional authority in Gaza that mustn't be completely foreign. It has to be the Palestinians also that are part of that administration.
Well, when it comes to the future governance of the Gaza Strip, Trump's peace plan has some provisions on that as well. He spoke on the Board of Peace that he would oversee. One of the board members to be is the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. We've just seen him in Egypt taking a photo with Donald Trump. What kind of a role can Blair have in Gaza, given his history with the Middle East?
The question is extremely pertinent, in my opinion. But there are two things that we need to differentiate here. There's going to be the Peace Council, which is going to be the oversight body, and it's not going to be the governing body. So at the beginning, a lot of people thought that Tony Blair was the administration of Gaza, and he's not going to be a part of that body. He's going to be a part of the Peace Committee, the Peace Council. So he's going to be a part of that governing, that oversight body that is going to be chaired by President Trump himself. Let's see who are the other members. So long as he's in that non-executive role, it's not too bad. But in fact, as you very well pointed out, the image of Tony Blair in the region is not the best. It's not pristine. And he is in his private business has some partiality towards some of the actors in the region. So therefore, some people are questioning his neutrality and judgment. But that's not really the issue. It's how the administration itself is going to be formed, the executive body of this. And it's going to be mostly, that's what I have been told in very, very well informed sources, that it's going to be technocratic Palestinians that have no political affiliation whatsoever, even bringing them from abroad that are maybe in the corporate world, or they're in the United Nations, or they're in other international organizations. And once the Palestinian Authority undergoes a thorough and profound reform, and it is cleaned of all of the negative elements and of the corruption that has presided the Palestinian Authority, unfortunately, for so long, then the Palestinian Authority will be able to take over not only the West Bank, but also the Gaza Strip. And last but not least, let us not forget that to make all of this happen, there needs to be a huge investment in reconstruction. And this money is going to come from four sources: the European Union, the World Bank, the Gulf countries, and of course, some soft loans from different financial international institutions.
At the very start of our conversation, you spoke of the Europeans' role here in Gaza, which was frankly non-existent. Is funding the reconstruction maybe a way to again become a player in the Middle East?
I am old enough to have been a diplomat when the first peace process was in place. I joined the Foreign Service in 1989, and I was in the Middle East department of my ministry all throughout until 96. So I saw all of this process. In fact, I was in the headquarters in Madrid when the peace in Madrid 91 was taking place. Then I was shifted to Jordan, where I saw the opening of the Israeli embassy in Amman and the signing of the Wadi Arab Treaty that established full diplomatic relations between the Kingdom of Jordan and the State of Israel. So there was a lot of European involvement back then, and I remember that it became more of a structure than of substance. And I really hope, as a diplomat, as an observer, as an analyst, and as a person that lives most of his life between the Maghreb and the Middle East, that this is not going to be the case now. We need to concentrate on substance. And if the European Union wants to play a role, it has to abide by this. Now there are new players in the region that are much more important for the success of this peace plan than the European Union itself. We're not in 1993 anymore. If the European Union wants to participate by expertise in trying to teach governance to the new Palestinian authorities, be it. If the European Union wants to provide with funds, excellent. If the European Union wants to help supervise that there's not going to be any kind of deviation of those funds to private pockets or corruption, fantastic. But this said, we should not transform the peace process into a structure in which the technocrats feel at ease. Right now and right here, what really counts is peace. What really counts is developing the relations between Israel and its neighbors, overcoming 80 years of hatred and war, and making public what is already private. The excellent relations that so many Arab countries already have with the State of Israel. Morocco, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, obviously with their tensions because they're neighbors, Egypt and Jordan. And Jordan has been very critical with what has been going on in Gaza. But nonetheless, it has diplomatic relations with the State of Israel and has never severed those diplomatic relations since 1993. And I would say this is the most important step in the peace in the Middle East since the assassination of Isaac Rabin in 1995.
Well, now, as you've so correctly put it, there is the relations of Israel with its Arab neighbors and beyond are now set to shape what the Middle East is going to look like. Do you see this summit in Egypt as a chance to expand the Abraham Accords? And who do you see signing them? Who do you see approaching them if the peace plan goes on properly, if the ceasefire holds?
I think, again, this is a very appropriate question. Let's see. I think that the negotiations between Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the State of Israel were very advanced on the eve of the 7th of October of 2023. And one of the objectives, one of the goals of the terrorists when they attacked on the 7th of October of 23 was exactly to derail the Abraham Accords and specifically to prevent the Saudi kingdom to becoming a member of that. They knew for a fact that if such an important country, an essential country, not only for the Arab world, but for the Middle East as a whole, as is the case, and for the Muslim world, even the non-Arab Muslim world, and let's not forget that they are the custodians of the holy places, it would have been a disaster for what they considered to be their cause, and wasn't the cause. It was just propaganda, death, and violence, as is always the case with Hamas. I think that The other countries are going to be able to step up their relations with Israel. Others that hadn't considered opening relations with Israel are going to consider that. I would not discard the fact that maybe one of the big surprises in this second round of the Abraham Accords, we will see Qatar joining, Kuwait joining, and Oman joining. I would not be surprised at all.
There is one thing we've heard in the Knesset today, Benjamin Netanyahu vowing he's committed to peace. Now, looking back at the previous ceasefire, which was collapsed by Netanyahu and the offensive resumed, how much can Donald Trump trust Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, they have had a complicated relationship, and even Donald Trump said it very publicly in the Knesset the other day. Let's not forget that the things that Donald Trump has said privately, publicly, and in his speech in the Knesset are things that no other president of the United States would have dared to express in a murmur in a private conversation in front of a prime minister of Israel. Right now, you have to praise the valor and the courage, the political courage of Donald Trump, who has said what he thought was necessary to be said to the Prime Minister of Israel, in private and in public. He was not happy with the attack against Qatar. Qatar has been an essential player in this peace process and an essential negotiator. And an attack against an essential ally of NATO, two NATO bases, Turkey and the United States, and of the United States, is a huge, stupid mistake. And he made the Prime Minister of Israel apologize to Qatar, and in a double humiliation, if you allow me to say it this way, taking a picture of the conversation and leaking it, and B, doing it with the Prime Minister of Qatar and not the Emir himself. So I really do think that had it not been a friend of Israel, that is undoubtedly a friend of Israel, the president that moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and a man that has appointed a staunch defender and friend of Israel as ambassador of the United States to Israel, which is the case of Mr. Huckabee. Well, that proves that Donald Trump can get away with things that no other president would get away. Had it not been Donald Trump, any other president would not have been able to impose on the Prime Minister of Israel peace. And he said two things that have not been sufficiently underlined by the media, unfortunately. He said, you are going to be remembered for this. Had you continued killing, that was not the way. And you need to put Israel, your talent in your own defense, at the service of building infrastructure. And all of your talents instead of using it for your defense in missiles or other weapon systems, in schools and hospitals. That was an extremely, extremely important message.
In that vein, now with everything that has happened with the ceasefire in place, what kind of an international position does Israel find itself in now, just a bit over 2 years of the war in Gaza?
You see, this is a question that leads us to a very important differentiation that has not been sufficiently made. Even the Prime Minister of Israel himself has made this statement over and over again in a way that I think was an overreaction, a political overreaction on his part. He has always stated that whatever he says is what the government of Israel says, what the state of Israel stands for, and what the global Jewish community supports. And that is simply not true. His government is a coalition where his party is the largest, but is very far from an absolute majority in the Knesset. And some of his coalition associates and partners are not at all moderate political players. And more importantly, if I may say so, it is essential to understand that the global Jewish community and Israel is not the government of Israel and is not the prime minister of Israel. He cannot claim to represent both. It is essential to understand that not everybody in Israel was in agreement with their prime minister. And you could even see that last Saturday during the speeches of Witkoff and Jared Kushner, when Steve Witkoff mentioned the name of the Prime Minister of Israel, there was a huge booing in the crowd. 400,000 people were meeting there. So a lot of demonstrations have been going on in Israel, not only because of the situation of the hostages and return of the hostages, but also because some of the reforms, the judicial reforms that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to introduce into Israel, are against the spirit, the fundamentally democratic, radically democratic spirit of Israel, that is a staunch democracy, a fervent democracy. And they are trying to defend and protect the checks and balances of their political system, the independence of the judiciary, and the independence, even if in a parliamentary system it's always complicated, between the legislative body and the executive branch.
Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight.
Thank you very much.
Now let's recap for now. Over in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egyptian resort at the Red Sea, more than 20 world leaders gathered along with the U.S. President Donald Trump for a signing ceremony, and sign they did. It is in Trump words, a very comprehensive document that equates to a Gaza ceasefire deal, as Donald Trump had put during his bilateral talks with his co-host, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi. The second phase, the negotiations on the second phase have already started, and all the faces are a little mixed. Now, we've heard his speech praising Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for their roles, speaking to other world leaders as well. These world leaders, including the General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, have all gathered in the hall under the banner that reads Peace in the Middle East. In the next dozens of minutes, we're expecting a speech to happen. But until then, let's go to Tel Aviv and the hostage square, because crowds have gathered in Tel Aviv since the early morning before the even first round of hostages had been released by Hamas into the Red Cross custody. Now, after 20 living hostages have been released, there are some hiccups with the bodies of the deceased hostages. At the hostage square in Tel Aviv is our Lou Brown. Lou, what is happening at the hostage square? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I just want to start with Donald Trump's comments that he said it's an incredibly historical day for the world. Now, that's not the first time. I am going to tell you all about Hostage Square, but that's not the first time today. I didn't want to start with an anecdote, but I was having lunch earlier, and a lady sitting next to me, I asked her on what she thought of today and how historical it was in her opinion, and she shared something to that, as well as other people in the square who I've spoken to throughout the hours I've been here. Now, the square is quite interesting of color, and I don't mean physical. What I mean is the color of the different somber notes, as well as the happiness. It's a real mixture of joy and reflection. Now, clock, which 737 days and just over 14 hours, and that's quite simple, still ticking. The reason is that not all the being repatriated to Israel yet, to my understanding. Now, I'm not sure when that clock will finally stop or whether it will stop, but when it does, I'm not sure what the reaction will be here in Hostage Square. Hostage Square itself It's got lots of motifs that we've seen throughout this war. The famous yellow ribbon that has become anonymous with all the people and the hostages that have been affected by this war in Gaza. Equally, on the hostage square that I'm seeing here, there are many different artifacts, there are many different stools, even a tunnel that's sort of replicating what the hostages went through, which is a surprise to me, as well as other sorts of memorabilia, as well as other sorts of stools that are just amplifying and showing the story that it is. As well, in what you can't see, but what I'm currently looking at is singing and lots of dancing. Now that brings the joy from afar, and you can see the flag waving. It's a proper sense of national unity here. Now what's to come later this evening, I'm not sure, but I'll be here all this evening chatting to many different people. It's also worth noting earlier, I did speak to an IDF spokesperson who told me this day was full of immense sadness, and it's really emblematic of the feeling here in Tel Aviv. And today, it really couldn't be more historical. I don't think there's another word to use for it.
Indeed, Lou. Thank you so much for bringing us all the details from Tel Aviv. And thank you so much for watching. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of special coverage. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned to A News.